Make that louder.
Good evening, everyone. I hope you can all hear me out there in Zooland. And welcome.
Yes, thank you.
And tonight's parsha. Tonight we will discuss the parsha Bechukotai, the final parsha in Sefer Vayikra, which the highlight or the most well-known part of parsha Tochacha is of Bechukotai is the Tochacha, where Hashem tells, or Moshe, speaking on behalf of Hashem, tells Am Yisrael what is going to happen to us if we. Oh, Alan, you want to join so you can see what's going, so you can see. Okay. So we can see and hear. Let's go back. The Torah, where we understand what will happen if we, as the Jewish people, collectively do not live up to the expectations Hashem has for us. But we're going to start from the beginning of the parsha, where we are given a very brief explanation of what can happen when we follow those things that HaKadosh Baruch Hu would like us to follow. By the way, I apologize. I forgot to say tonight's shiur is Li'ul Nishmat Avi Mori Dover Meir Ben Nunah Levi Imar Tivach Bat Rabbi Michal. Have to always say that. Remember that I didn't get here by. I learned some of these things. I learned because I had parents who made sure I had a good education. So I always have to thank them and my teachers. So. Okay, we're going to talk about parshat Bechukotai, and we're going to begin, as I said, at the beginning of the parsha, which, interestingly enough, is one of those parashot that if you read your Chumash, it does not start with chapter 26, but not verse 1, verse 3. That's a whole different discussion as to why it doesn't begin with verse 1, but that discussion for a different time. Different parsha, a different discussion for a different time as to why chapters and verses are numbered the way they are. But anyway, the pasuk, I'm going to start by briefly going through the first 10, 11 psukim, which basically give a very brief and quick outline of what will happen when we are living up to our mission. And it's very, very rich and very, very brief, but it covers all the bases. So let's go through it very quickly. In Bechukotai Telech, I'm going to leave the first verse semi-translated, but not fully translated. If Bechukotai, in my chukim telechu, you will go, vet mitzvotai tishmeru, and my mitzvot you will observe, asitem otam, and do them. Just briefly, generally, when we have the word tishmeru generally refers to refraining from transgressing negative commandments, while va'asitem, and you should do them, generally refers to observance of positive commandments. So it seems, if just from a first glance at this verse, we're talking about chukotai, those mitzvot that seem to have no explanation or are not necessarily comprehensible according to rational human thought. We have to walk in their ways, and we have to observe the mitzvot that are negative, to not transgress them, and do the positive commandments. That's what it seems the verse is telling us. Now, God promises the following: you will have the rains in their proper, appropriate time. And the land will give its crops, its yivul, meaning its beneficence, I guess. The eighth hasadeh, the tree, fruits of the tree, yitain priyo, will yield their fruit. So again, first thing we get is rain in the proper seasons, and as a result of rain, all of the crops grow properly. The siglachem dayish et batzir, when you thresh, it will get to the next planting season. Batzir yasig et zara, the next planting season growing season will go. Collecting all the grapes and trampling them will keep you busy until the next planting season. In other words, you'll be busy agriculturally because of the plenty. There'll be so much produce around, you'll have plenty to keep you going all year long. You will eat your bread to satiation, and you will live in betach, security, thank you, in your land. I will grant peace in the land. You'll be able to lie down and sleep without any fear. Vishmati chaya ra'ah min haaretz, I will cause to leave the land all evil beasts. The charav lo tavor ba'aretzachem, and not only will you have peace, but you won't even have swords passing through your land. Or daftem et oivechem, you will chase your enemies. V'naflu lechem lacharv, and they will fall before you through the sword. V'radzu become chamisha mea, and 5 of you will be able to chase 100. V'mea become revava yirdofu, and 100 will chase 10,000. V'naflu oivechem lifnechem lacharv, and your enemies will fall before you by the sword. Ufaniti alechem, and I will turn to you. V'freiti etchem, and I will cause you to become fruitful and multiply. V'beiti etchem, and you will become great and multiple. V'kimoti et briti etchem, and I will establish my covenant with you. V'chaltem yashan noshan, you will be able to eat the old produce, and it will still be tasty and appropriate. The yashan mipnei chodesh tertziu, and you will have so much left from the old crop that you're going to have to, and it won't spoil, and you'll have to get rid of it to bring in the new crop. You won't have enough room to keep it. V'natati mishkani b'tocham, I will place my sanctuary in your midst. V'otigal nafshi etchem, and I will not find you disgusting. V'talachti b'tochachem, and I will walk in your midst. V'yitzilachem lelokim, and I will be your God. Atem to you liliam, and you will be my nation. Ani Hashem Elokechem, I am Hashem, your God. Asher hotzeiti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim, who took you from the land of Egypt, michot lahem avodim, where you were servants to them, slaves to them. V'eshbar motot ulachem, and I will break the chains that are binding you, or the yoke that is upon you. V'olech etchem kol mimiyut, and I will allow you to walk upright. Sounds like a wonderful litany of blessings that will all happen if Bechukotai telechu et mitzvotai shmo, all based on the first pasuk. Now, I just want to point one thing out, because we're going to see that when we get to the parshanut. A couple things I want to just point out very quickly. The word vinatati appears at the beginning of 3 different sections. One here, and one here. Okay, so we have the word vinatati, and God will grant us 3 different things, 3 different stages. 1, granting rain. 2, granting peace, and 3rd, granting that Hashem will establish the sanctuary in our midst. Okay, just want to point that out. The other thing to point out, of course, is the mathematics. For those of us not mathematically inclined, the ratio here doesn't seem to make sense. If 5 of us chase 100, that's a 1-to-20 ratio. If 100 chase 10,000, that's a 1-to-100 ratio. So it seems that the more you'll go up, the more ratio that you can handle. So we're going to see what some of the commentaries have to say about that. We'll go first, of course, to Rashi, and trying to understand what is the first verse. What is this referring to? We will observe the chukim and observe the mitzvot. In other words, don't transgress the negative ones, observe the positive ones. So if we've already included, don't transgress all the negative ones, observe all the positive ones, what does the first 3 words, Bechukotai telechu, mean? That's what Rashi's first question is. I might have thought ordinarily that when the phrase says, Bechukotai telechu, if you will walk in my chukim, it means to follow the chukim. However, if that's the case, when it says you should observe all the mitzvot, we've already included observance of the mitzvot. So what does Bechukotai telechu come to add? Rashi says, what does Bechukotai telechu really mean? Shetichu amelim baTorah, that you have to toil in Torah. What does that mean, to toil in Torah? Great question. Rashi tells us the next one. What does it mean? Havu amelim baTorah. We have to study the Torah diligently. Why? Almanat lishmar ulakayim. So, because if we study the Torah diligently, we will know what we have to observe, what all these negative commandments we have to refrain from transgressing, and lakayim will be able to know what all the positive commandments, how to do them. So, in order to properly perform the mitzvot, guess what? We got to study them first. We have to know what it is we're supposed to be doing. Kimosha Nemar, as the verse says in the Varim, once we teach them and learn them, ushmartem lasotam, we can guard ourselves to observe them. So in order to fulfill the mitzvot, we have to first learn what they are. So Rashi says that this first three words, Bechukotai telechu, means that we have to diligently study the Torah in order, but primarily not just as an academic intellectual pursuit, but for the purpose of understanding what it is God expects of us. And the purpose of studying the Torah ultimately is lishmar v'lasot, is to observe and to do. Okay, we're going to go to Bechor Shor. All right. Now, Bechor Shor focuses on this fact of what is happening if, as a result of this, what is going to happen? All of these blessings are going to accrue to the Jewish people collectively. So, right, Bechor Shor, wait a minute, why? What is the connection between one and the other? This doesn't seem that there should be any connection. So, Shetasu ma'ashalechem lasot. Bechor Shor very simply says, when we, the Jewish people, do what we are supposed to be doing, live our lives the way we're supposed to be, ha'ananim v'ha'aretz, so do the clouds and the land, v'ali ilanot, and the trees, shenivru b'shvilchem, that God created the entire world for the sake of human beings, for the sake of humanity. So when we, humanity, act properly, God allows nature, allows the world, or tells the world that they should also act properly. They will do what they're supposed to do, i.e., the clouds will bring the rain that they're supposed to do, the land will give forth the crops it's supposed to do, the trees will give forth the fruit they're supposed to. All of those things happen because you were observing what you were supposed to be doing. So God repays us, kiviyachol, mida keneged mida, measure for measure. We do what God asks. God makes sure that the rest of creation does what it was asked to do. Okay? Why? How does that work? As Torah continues, I, Hashem, will command the clouds to give forth the rain at the appropriate time. Wait, hatzarich, when is the appropriate time? When you need rain. You don't need it to rain when you're trying to harvest the crops. It's too late then. You need the rain when they're growing, when they've been planted. Lo merubim yoter midai. They will not also, Hashem will make sure that the rain comes in exactly the right proportion, the right amount, not too much. Lo muatim yoter midai. So you'll have enough to drink, you'll have enough for the crops, everything will go smoothly when we follow the Torah mitzvot. For sure, again, seems to say that this is part of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's running of the world, midah keneged midah, that when we act appropriately, the world acts appropriately. Okay. Now, the Toldot Yitzchak has a number of comments and questions that he raises on the chapter, and then he tries to answer some of them. So, firstly, he raises the following four questions. Parsha Zeyesh Arba Sfeikot. There are four questions I'd like to address, he says. Number one, Shenira Mizeh. If I look at the verses and I understand them literally, very simply, Sheschar HaMitzvah Hu Ba'olam Hazeh. The verses seem to imply that the reward for observing mitzvot is something that's going to accrue to us in this world. That because we observe the mitzvot, Hashem will make sure that we have plenty in this world. The Eino came, but that's not really the case. Sha'olam Hazeh Hevel Varik. This world is vanity. It's only fleeting. Doesn't really mean a whole lot. Like Shlomo Melech says in the book of Kohelet, Kol Hevel. Everything in this world is meaningless. What we all quote think we should be striving for, monetary things, materialistic things, it's all meaningless. Because guess what? Can't take it with you, right? Okay, the ein roish hamitzvot shehem kedusha v'romot gedolot u'b'tzurot b'shamayim. It doesn't seem appropriate that these mitzvot, when we observe a mitzvah which is so holy and it's so great and it goes up, its merit goes up to heaven. Yes, how can we say that the reward for doing mitzvot is something that happens in this world, when this world is fleeting and meaningless, and tomorrow we're all going to be not here. We're going to be here. We're here today, but at some point in the future, we're all not going to be here. So how can we say that we got our reward here in this fleeting world for mitzvah? That's the first question he asks. Second question, She'amar, it says, a sword shall not pass through the land. Vakavana, and his intent is afilu cherev shel shalom. Even a sword during peacetime won't pass through the land. Why? Because we, the Jewish people, don't need to rely on a sword to win a war. Shenever, as we see in the pasuk in Shoftim, in Dvoro, in Dvor for the war, with shield, in case there was a spear to fend off. They had 40,000 people in Israel, but they were able to win the war without any weapons. They didn't need weapons. They need Hashem as their weapons. The im kain, if that's the case, if we just said that they will not need swords, that swords won't be available, they don't need swords, because Hashem will be fighting for them, then why does it say that when you chase your enemies, they'll fall before you with the sword? If you don't have any swords, how are you going to fight? How are you going to kill the enemy with swords if you don't even have swords? So in fact, we see classic example of that is when David fights Goliath. He knocks Goliath out with the stone, and he has no sword in his hand to even kill him. He didn't even come to fight Goliath with the sword. He has to go take Goliath's own sword to kill him. By the way, that's part of the answer, I think we'll see. Okay, he may not have had a sword, but the enemy had a sword, so he was able to have a sword to use. Savik Hashlishi. Okay, the third is the one I just raised. It says 5 chased 100, 100 chased 10,000. If 5 chase 100, then the ratio is 1 to 20. So 100 should only chase 2,000. How do we get to 10,000? How come it goes up so drastically? Such a great curve on increasing. That doesn't seem to make sense either. Savik Haravi in the fourth, Shezota Parsha Shalok Seder. The order of which the blessings are presented seems to be out of order. Shehitchil b'gishamim, b'shefa hamizono. First, it starts by telling us how we're going to have rainfall, and as a result of rainfall, we're going to have food, plentiful food. The achar b'shalom v'nitzachon ha'ivim. Then it tells us about that we'll have peace and we'll be able to destroy our enemies. The achar, and then it seems to go back to the beginning. And it says, you'll be able to eat the old crop and it'll be healthy and you'll have all this food to eat. Why are we going back again to food? We had that at the beginning. Why did it interrupt for peace? Talking about eating and the fact that how much we're going to have. We're going to have so much that our storehouses we have to empty the old stuff out of the storehouses to put the new stuff in. That should have been with the plenty above before it talked about peace. So that's his 4 questions. Now he goes to the answer. Tshuva l'rishona, the answer to the first question. First question, again, just to review, was how can we assign temporal, material blessings to something that's performing a mitzvah which seems to be eternal? How can we minimize the reward and say it's only in this world? Shakadosh Baruch Hu, the answer is Shakadosh Baruch Hu Ratzah Laholich Am Yisrael Haderach Sha'ah Im Yisrael Haderach Sha'ah Molich Im B'no L'Shiasik B'Torah. The real answer and the answer for why Torah promises material well-being for keeping the mitzvot is that Kadosh Baruch Hu is dealing with Am Yisrael at this point like a parent deals with a young child. Okay, and what does that mean? Kishu Katan, when a child is young, Omer Lo Lecha. When your child starts learning, you say, come on, you got to go to school, you got to learn. I don't want to go learn. Well, what do you say to the kid? I'll give you a treat, right? Okay. I'll give you nice sweet fruits. Okay? Okay, so that's when he starts out, right? And after he gets a little bit older, now, first you bribe him with a few sweets, right? He gets a little older, that doesn't work anymore. I don't need that. Now you got to start bribing him with a few shekels. You got to give him a few bucks so he can buy himself whatever it is he wants to buy. The achakach, and after that, Omer lo lech lilmod ten malbush. Then later on, when he gets older and he starts to think about having a family, he says, "Okay, go learn, and I'll make sure you have clothes and whatever we buy, help you buy your apartment and all these other things." Finally, when he gets old enough and mature enough and understands the real value of the Torah, he says, now go and learn so that you can inherit the world to come, Olam Haba. So again, takes a little bit of time. But that's not even the last step. In the final step, when the son has really learned and reached another level, tells him the real truth. Lech lilmod avur malat HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Go learn, because then you can learn about the greatness of Hashem, how great the Almighty is for the creation. Shabara ha'olam, who created the world, the asa lanu et hanefesh hazot, and gave us our neshama. Lo tachlit shum sachar, and he doesn't need any reward, just the reward that we're here, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu created us, and we want to have a relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's it. The cholzeh, and what is this progression supposed to teach us? Shemitoch shelo lishma ba lishma. That even though we may start out learning for the wrong reasons, we're learning because the kid we want the candy, or later on we learn because we want to get good grades in school and make our parents happy, and we know they'll give us good things if we make them happy and get good grades in school. And later on we learn for other different reasons. Maybe we'll learn for whatever. But ultimately, we have to learn. The reason we want to learn is because it's Hashem's Torah. It's Hashem's mitzvot that we're performing. We want to have a relationship with Hashem. That's the ultimate, what we're striving for. So similarly, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, when he goes through this whole verses, he says the following. Batchila, he says, Bechukotai telechu, he says, first, if you'll follow the commandments and observe the mitzvot, first I'll give you food, we'll give you some nice sweet fruits, you'll have rain in the proper time, and so the first thing Hashem wants to give us is material well-being. That's the first thing he tells us. And after that, ultimately, I'll give you peace. I'll grant peace. And after you have peace, you'll be able to chase your enemies away too. It's only at the end, in the last couple of verses, it says, I will place my sanctuary in your midst, and I will walk together with you. What does that mean? Eden. Kadosh Baruch Hu will accompany us when we get to Gan Eden, when we get to the ultimate stage of having a relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, where we want to be with him. HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants to be with us too. That ultimately, the ultimate truth that we should be striving for is that we want to have a relationship with Hashem, both individually and collectively as a nation. That Hashem should want to have a relationship with us, and we should want to have a relationship with Hashem. She'avdei hamelech roi lamut ba'avodatah uvavur ma'alat hamelech atzmo. Those who are servants of the king should be willing to give their lives just for the sake of being able to serve this king. And because the king is so great, they want to glorify him by being attached to that great king. They themselves feel enhanced. And we follow the same course in the parshat of Eikev when Moshe is telling all of this to the generation 40 years later. And that's why there in parshat Eikev, Moshe reminds Am Yisrael there, Yadata im levavecha, we must understand that just like a father challenges his son and tests his son and makes sure he goes and progresses, so too Hashem wants Bnei Yisrael to progress. Hakavana zeh shamarti. This is what I just said. Hu shaholich imam b'brichot haderech hashav molichet beno. The Kadosh Baruch Hu leads Am Yisrael the same way that a father leads his son. Therefore, Bechukotai, why Bechukotai? Lomar hachukim ein adam osel tam ba'avura. These are the chukim that we do not for our own sake, but shari ein lem tam. They don't necessarily have a rationale. We've discussed the chukim are those that we don't understand. Kadosh Baruch Hu has a reason for them. We might not understand it. El bavura Kadosh Baruch Hu shemitzavutam. The only reason our connection to chukim is Hashem has commanded us, and that's why we do it. The mitzvot that we think we understand a little bit, so too we should be doing them not because we understand them, but because Hashem has commanded them, because they are commandments. Yes, we understand the reason, That's why the pasuk ends with that. Even though we understand, quote, understand the reason, we still have to observe the mitzvot because they're Hashem's mitzvot. And we should do them again. Same reason. Simply not because we understand them, and yes, they are very logical, but because they are God's commandment. That's why it ends with vasitem otam. So we have to always look at all aspects of the mitzvot as we are observing them because Hashem has commanded them. Okay. Then it goes through another reason why Shamar. We'll skip this here, and we're going to go to a very, very long. I'm going to skip the rest of this and go to a very, very long Orach Chaim. I don't know how much of this we're going to get through, but the Orach Chaim is going to go through a number of different concepts of levels of Torah that we can reach and that are all alluded to in this opening of this week's parsha. That the whole point of the parsha is that we are supposed to immerse ourselves in Torah, and he's going to go through a whole lot of different ways of doing that. As I said, I don't know how far I'm going to get in this. I know I'm not going to finish it because it's a very, very long mamar by the Orach Chaim HaKadosh, but it's very worth starting at least. Torah Kohanim Amruzal. The Chazal tell us the following in the Midrash. Yachol Elo HaMitzvot. I might think the Bechukotai, which is basically what Rashi says. Again, the same Midrash that Rashi based his first comment on, that we are supposed to toil, to work, to engage ourselves in Torah. That's supposed to be our pursuit of life. Our pursuit of life is the pursuit of Torah. But if that's the case, why doesn't the Torah say in Bechukotai ta'amelu? Why Bechukotai telechu or in Torati ta'amel? Why does it use this strange language of chukotai and telechu? That's what Orach Chaim is going to focus on, these two words, chukot and telechu. So he's saying it's a tam shekar because of amal Torah chukah. Why does he refer to it as chukah? Now chukah has two meanings. One is we know the word chukah refers to a statute of the Torah that we don't understand. But chukah also means, we're going to find an alternative meaning, that it means something that is established and fixed and set. The mitzvah afilu lilmo devarim lamdam pamayim v'gimel pamim v'hem netuim etzlo. That the purpose is that we are supposed to make chukah something that is established, something that we are familiar with and comfortable with. That we don't just learn a mitzvah once and that's it, we finished. We learn it again and again, so that they become part and parcel of who we are. Hashem wants us to toil in the Torah, because it's a statute that He has established. The Timsa Sha'amru Chazal, we see that the Chazal tell us in Kohelet Rabbah, that a person should always have energy and really strive to learn Torah always. Kadosh Baruch Hu decided in His infinite wisdom that human beings will forget things that they learn. We will not remember perfectly everything we learned the first time, or the second, or the third, or the fourth, or the fifth. Sometimes we will, sometimes we won't. But the fact that we are forgetful is to ensure that we review things, that we learn them over and over again. So that's the first case. Now, why does it say chukotai lashon of rabim? Why not bechukai? Why bechukotai, the plural? Yirmos lebeit Torah. This is to allude to the fact that there are two sections, two parts of the Torah. There is Torah shebichtav, there is the written Torah, the Torah shebal peh, the oral Torah. And we have to focus on both of them, because in order to fully understand the written Torah, we have to have the oral Torah that explains it and goes with it. Masorat hateva lashon yachid she'ein vav ben kuf l'tava. Now the Bechukotai, he says, is written without an extra vav. Lomar, to tell us ki haTorah shebal peh hi kelula b'Torah shebachtav, that the oral law is included in the written law. They're inseparable. They're two halves of the same coin. They're not two separate Torah. There's one aspect. There's one Torah. Part of it is written. part of it is oral, but it's attached to and connected to the Torah. The Sham Binyana, and that is where the foundation of the Torah Sheba'al Peh is in the Torah Shebiftav. And we find virtually all of the time we have things evolving in the Gemara. When we learn halachot, they all start, most of them, I should say, most of them are based on something in the Torah before we expound it and we learn it and we study it. Okay. Od remes bi'amru Bechukotai lashon rabim. Another thing that's hinting to by using a lashon of plural when it says Bechukotai, al derech omro, is also related to the pasuk we're having in Yeshua, Gita bo yomam v'layla. That we have to not just study a few minutes each day, but we have to study Torah day and night. That we should establish times, set aside times specifically to study Torah both during the day and at night. Again, but it's not written with the vav to tell us that both day and night are part of the same unit. That we have a night and a day makes a whole unit. Even though we call daytime day, a day is a day and a night, which seems very strange in terms of language. A yom echad is yom and a laila, but that's the way it works. It's a very strange nuance of language. Okay, now we're going to continue. Od yirtza also wants to follow. Also, again, all of these things are alluded to, as I said, Bechukotai telechu, these two words. In order to properly fulfill and be able to reach higher levels in Torah, you need two things. First, you have to learn it for yourself. The second aspect is you have to be able to teach it to others. Specifically, generally, primarily, first people you're going to teach it to, as it says, your children. Exactly. We have in the Kriyat Shema, we say it. We have to teach Torah to our children. We have to teach our children about Hashem, teach children about our Torah. All of these things, in other words, if we don't understand it, we can't teach it properly. But first we have to understand it so we can do it, and then we have to understand it so we can teach it. That's why it says plural, because it has to be to learn and to teach. And then lishmar v'lasot, the other aspects of to observe and to do, is the rest of the pasuk that we have to observe and we have to fulfill. So all of these aspects are all alluded to in this first opening pasuk. So all of that was based on the word Bechukotai. Now, the Tamramu lashon halicha. Why does it use a language of halacha? Bechukotai telechu means if you will walk in the way. Now we know, interestingly enough, that the corpus of laws of the Torah we call halacha, which is again the way in which we are supposed to go. So again, based probably on this pasuk Bechukotai telechu. Why does it use this language of halicha? Okay, first simple thing he wants to tell you is Torah isn't only for when you're in shul or when you're home. Even when you're on a journey, you should take Torah with you. You have to study Torah with you even when you're on a journey. As it says, you say in the Shema, even when you're going on the way, you have an obligation to try to learn Torah. You should always focus on the love of HaKadosh Baruch Hu and the love of Torah, no matter where we are in the world. Number two, why does it say Lalachet? The pasuk, there's a pasuk in Tilim B'chashafti David that I calculated. In other words, I thought about the way I wanted to travel. David HaMelech says in Tilim. David choshev lasot inyanim v'ragalav molichim otom yatzmam el beit hamidrash l'rov hachevetz haratzon regilut davar. David tells us that the way we should approach going to a shiur, going to sit and learn, is that we should be on autopilot. Our body should automatically know how to get there. Just like there are times when when you're driving to work in the morning and you're busy thinking of something else, and all of a sudden you realize you're at your exit. You say, "Oh, that's it. Fine. Good thing the car knew how to get here, right?" What the Arachaim HaKadosh is saying is that David HaMelech is davening to Hashem that he's telling us that we should be trying and striving that the way we want to go, the place we want to go the most, is the place where we can learn Torah and do mitzvot. Notice we shouldn't have to, we should reach a point, we should be striving to reach a point where we automatically want to go to learn, where we automatically want to go to perform mitzvot, to perform chesed, to help others. Whatever it is that we want to do, it should be on, and it's not that it should be on autopilot, we shouldn't think about it, but it should be it should be a thing we're used to doing. It shouldn't be something that's, oh, I've never done this before, I don't know how to do it. It should be something we know how to do this, we've done it before, we are used to it, it's the normal thing we do. That we should strive to have this desire and this normative behavior that we should be striving for. That's what he's saying. And that's why it says halechet. Okay. Another thing, another reason it says halechet is because haTorah yesh ba daled drachim. There are 4 ways we interpret the Torah, and they are parshat, remez, rosh, and sod. Pshat being the simple explanation, remez being something that's alluded to, Drush means we then expound it, and sod means something that we have to really look deeply to find because it's buried in there. There are 4 different ways in which we expound psukim in the Torah, and we look for hints and ways to better understand what the Torah is expecting. Umei elu, and from these 4 different ways of looking at a pasuk, Nifridu ayin panim. We have an expression in the Talmud that says there are 70 different facets to the Torah. Just like when you look at a piece of jewelry, you say, oh, look at how beautiful it looks, like all these different facets. When you look at a pasuk in the Torah or a word in the Torah, there are 70 different ways to look at it. Now, now here I'll tell you that the number 70 is metaphoric. It doesn't mean that there are only 70. It doesn't mean that there are exactly 70. It means that there are a multitude of ways of understanding the pasuk. The reason it uses 70, I suspect, is related to the 70 nations. That anytime you see the number 70, it's to remind us that we are unique among the 70 nations. I think that's whenever we see that number 70 in a something. Oh, there's a lot of, and it uses the number 70 because there are lots of times where it will use 100 for a lot of things. There are times when it will use 10 for a lot of, but when it uses 70, it's to just to contrast us that we are unique among the nations. Not that we're better, we're different. We have a different mission that Hashem has allotted to us. Now, each of these 70 facets leads to different paths and ways and subpaths of which to understand and which to delve into them. And that's why when we talk about paths and ways and delving into it, we talk about being on a journey, walking, halakha. Bechukotai lashon rabim. Again, that's why we go back to the Bechukotai being lashon rabim. Techu perish b'chol orchinu shvilin. You should seek out and follow all the different possible roads of interpretation to get a richer and more meaningful understanding of everything. Yelech b'hem b'feirush aktuvim, in terms of understanding different psukim. Below Yomar, and a person should not say she'ein b'Torah el pshat hamuvan l'kol, that the only way to understand this is the simple literal translation. That's not the intent. That we have to delve into Torah, that we have to not just say, okay, I understand this, finished, I translate, I understand it, I can move on to the next one. You have to try to get a richer and deeper understanding of everything that we run across in the Torah. That we should understand in everything that we do, we should try to understand and learn more about Hashem. Katav Rambam, actually, we're going to bring that halacha down in a minute, what Rambam has to say. Just want to, okay. This is exactly based on, he says, this is based on this pasuk, if you walk in the ways, that you should imbue all of your activities with the Torah. How do we do that? We're going to see in a minute in the Rambam. We're going to bring the Rambam, whether it's achila, whether it's eating, whether it's mishta, whether it's partying, v'dibur, whether it's our ordinary speech. Whenever we do anything in the natural world, in our biological world, in our everyday lives, we should focus it towards meaningful activities in a way. Now, Rambam's going to explain that, and I brought this Rambam down because I thought it was very important to bring this down and digress from Iyar Chaim for a minute to read this Rambam. A person who thinks that he knows everything and he only understands and he works based on on medicine only, about science only, based on the natural world only. He thinks that all of his body will be physically fit, and that's fine. And he'll have healthy kids and they'll do all his work for him. That's not an appropriate way to approach life. That you can, he can do whatever he wants and his kids will take care of him. Ella, Yasima Libo, he should think about She'egufo Shalem B'chazak, that his body should be healthy and strong. Kedei Shetia Nafsho Yeshara Ladad Hashem, because if he has a healthy body, he can have a healthy soul that will focus on learning about God. A person cannot focus on intellectual pursuits, on gaining wisdom. If he's busy fighting, hey, where's my next meal coming from? He's busy worrying about where his next meal is coming from. He doesn't have any energy left to focus on intellectual pursuits. Or chola, or if he's unfortunately ill. If he's so ill that he's busy sitting in bed all day and all he is racking in pain, or if he's in pain. In any of these cases, he can't serve Hashem properly. The Yasim Ali Bo, Sheyihelo Ben, but even when at any point in his life, he should also focus that he should have children, not so they should support him. Maybe one of my kids will be a wise man. He'll be able to teach. He'll be able to be a leader in Israel. Nimsa hamahalach b'derech hazeh. So Rambam says somebody who acts in this way with this as his thought pattern, kol yamav, if that's the way he lives his life, oved Hashem tamid. He's always serving Hashem because he's always doing. Why? Afilu b'shasha nosei v'notei. Even when he's involved in business, afilu b'shasha o boel. Even when he's involved with in marital relations. All of his intentions are that he should be able to have all of the things he needs in order that he be healthy to serve Hashem. So his whole focus in life is not he's eating healthy food because he likes it and it's healthy and he wants to be healthy so he can, run another marathon. He wants to be healthy because he wants to be able to develop, to have time to focus on his spiritual pursuits also. Even when he's sleeping, if he sleeps so that he should have energy tomorrow, he'll have the rest, so he'll be able to be alert tomorrow and focus tomorrow and be able to accomplish. Also, he should get a proper amount of sleep so he shouldn't get sick. Because if he gets sick, he knows he won't be able to serve Hashem. If that's his focus, I'm going to get a good night's sleep, so I'll be healthy, so I'll be able to serve Hashem. Even when he sleeps, he's serving Hashem because he's sleeping, so that he should be well rested and be able to serve Hashem the next day. The Al Inyan Zatzimu Chachamim the Amru. This is what the Chachamim gave us the following business advice: Kol Masecha Yiyu L'Shem Shamayim. All of your deeds should be for the sake of Hashem, for the sake of heaven. Hu Shamar Shlomo B'Chachmato, and this is what Shlomo says: B'Chol D'Rachecha De'ehu. If you will know Hashem in all of, again, this word D'Rachecha, meaning all of the paths that you take, all of your journey through life, Hu Yasher Orchotecha, He will make sure your path continues straight. So this Rambam is what the Ohr HaChaim is referring to. He's saying that, again, one of the aspects here we're trying to focus on is focusing your energy on doing the right thing, doing healthy things, getting the right amount of sleep, eating the right foods. Why? Not so I should be healthy. Yes, so I should be healthy, but so I should be healthy to be able to serve Hashem and learn more about Hashem. Okay. We got time for one or two more. Let's see. Okay. Again, another way to explain this is the following: Sharashut nituna lelomdei Torah, lefarish ba v'lidrosh b'chama orachinu shvilin. We know that a person is permitted, and not only is permitted, but supposed to, when we're learning Torah, we are supposed to try to understand it in as many possible ways as possible. Every possible way. We should not throw out any potential proper interpretation. The Talmud Vasik Yechadish Midrasharak Tuvim Kasher Yuchala Katuv Shtei. And a person, the longer you learn, the more you've time, the more senior you are in your learning, not senior necessarily in age, but senior in the amount of time you've dedicated to learning, the more you can see and find in every word. Possibly because the more you learn, the more you're exposed to, the more you can see parallels and contrasts between different verses. The more you can see, wait a minute, this word in this context means X, maybe it means the same thing in a different context, which I never even thought about. But if you've never learned, you don't necessarily, when you first start out, you don't necessarily have that depth of looking at multitudes of verses to see multiple different meanings in the same word. In Hebrew, there are many words, just like in English, many words that have multiple different meanings. And when we change that meaning in the word, it changes the whole picture of what that verse might mean, or what that's half of the verse, or what that part of that story might mean. I'll give a very simple example. Okay, the word tsela has two meanings in Hebrew, in Torah. One, tsela means an anatomical part of us called the rib. The other is tsela means a side of a building. So when we say that Chava is created from the tsela of Adam, she's created from his tsela, we get two different interpretations. Was she created from his rib or from a side of his body? And we have a whole Gemara that each of those, look at those two different interpretations. But if you've never studied and you don't know what that word means, and you're looking at it in the English translation, well, the English translation will probably just say, okay, rib, now I got to go. I didn't know that tsela might even have another meaning. And that's just one quick example of words that have different meanings that lead us to very, very different conclusions about how this verse or chapter in the Torah is to be understood. Okay, as much as he is able to, based on his knowledge. What the Orach Chaim is saying is that only works. The only way you can reach the level of Torah where you can really understand it fully is also if you're observing the mitzvot. In other words, Torah is not an intellectual pursuit that you can pursue and really grasp the proper meaning if your focus isn't on trying to understand what is it Hashem wants from us to do in this world. Perish, means that I have to be very careful that I don't interpret the Torah improperly and inappropriately, because if I do, then I get into trouble. I can't declare something that's pure impure. And I also, same way, I don't want to make something that's tahor, tameh. I shouldn't make something that's tameh tahor, or something that's tahor tameh. This is why the Mishnah about sells hamagalat panim b'torah shelo kalacha. If you reveal something in the Torah and it contradicts the accepted halacha, and you teach that and continue to teach that that's the way people should be doing, you have forfeited your portion of the world to come, because you are leading people off the path. In other words, once we've understood what the halacha is, I have to find out how to interpret the verse in accordance with that halacha. If I find an interpretation that doesn't fit with the halacha, I can't teach that and say, well, that abrogates the halacha. I can teach it, but not as halachically or as not as something that will affect how people act. So it's another way of looking at the verse, but not another way to act. We can only have one way to act. Go ahead. The objective of it is because you have to explain it that this is another way to understand this verse, but that's not in accordance with the halacha. You have to tell people that so that they shouldn't come to be misled. In other words, if there's a verse that you can interpret two different ways, one way says A and the other says B, and we know the halacha is A, you can tell people that so why? So they shouldn't make the mistake and say, oh, well, the only reason they decide halacha is A because they didn't understand meaning B. No, we knew about B, but we still decided halacha was A. So prevent someone else from making the mistake, but not teaching that B is the proper way to act. You have to teach it that B is. I might have thought that B is a valid interpretation. It's not. That's the way you have to teach it. Okay. Okay. Let's try one more. Another way to explain this halicha. Lo amar it's chassid. The Pirkei were told that a person who is not knowledgeable cannot be a chassid. They cannot go above the letter of the law. Perush, which means a person who is unlearned should not try to go above and beyond the letter of the law. Why? How is he going to do that? If he doesn't know anything better, what's he going to do? He is going to say, oh, I don't know what the halacha is, so I better be strict on myself. And what's he going to do? He's going to make something he's going to be machmir on something that's going to cause him to transgress somewhere else. It's going to cause him to, because of his lack of knowledge, of understanding what is a legitimate chumrah and what is not, he's going to be machmir in something that's going to cause him to ultimately transgress something incorrect. And there are lots of different examples given throughout literature. And for this, tzivu chazal. That's why a person who doesn't know, who's not learned enough in Torah, should not be making up their own chumras, because it's entirely possible that as a result of their chumrah, they will create a kula somewhere else. This is again one of the allusions of this verse of the Bechukotai telechu to Asek HaTorah, which is the job, the toil in Torah. As et mitzvotai tishmaru. If you study Torah properly, then you can properly perform the mitzvot. In other words, if you go and study, then you'll understand where it is proper to make fences around to ensure that you observe the Torah. Okay, I think I'm going to stop. Wait, well, let's try one more quickly. Et mitzvotai tishmaru. Wait, hold on. Okay, now I think we better stop here because time is up. Basically, I think the Orach Chaim, as I said, he goes, this is very much longer. I could spend the rest of the week on this Orach Chaim and still not finish it. The bottom line is basically that he's telling us that the value and the importance of Torah study, but Torah study focused on A, observance, and B, having a relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, is what the Torah is alluding to here in the beginning of our parsha. That is first and foremost, that is what brings all of these brachot. Interestingly enough, if we look at all these brachot, none of them are individual, they're all collective brachot. And the reality of all of these brachot is basically that conditions will exist for the Jewish people to be able to fulfill their mission. So even though we look at these and we think, oh, it's all materialistic things, the bottom line is that all of these things are there to create an environment whereby the Jewish people can thrive, and through the Jewish people thriving physically, they'll be able to thrive intellectually and grow in Torah and grow in mitzvot and grow in showing the world how to build a Torah, a value, a state that lives by its values, so that we can teach the whole world about the values that are important and ultimately be zocheh to Gula Shlema. Thank you all. Any questions, comments, feedback at this time?
I don't know, just say when I was a little girl and so somebody she was really fighting.
Okay, that's a midrash. The whole story again.
Could you repeat the question, please?
Well, no. Again, we don't know. Lois is saying that, but okay. That's a whole different question. That's a whole different story. I don't want to get. Why does someone have to put that in someone's mind? Because there's a basis for that. I don't want to talk about that now. I'll talk about that offline with you if you'd like. But again, there are places where we have midrashim that are challenging to understand, no question about it. But again, that's all part of having a more mature outlook, a more mature look at the story. And because it's not, at face value, there are a lot of stories in the Torah that we learn as kids, and we have to revisit them as adults to understand, wait a minute, it's not as simple as we thought when we were raised as kids. We're not looking at it as a 6-year-old anymore. We've got to look at it as a mature adult and understand, what is it trying to teach us? What are the lessons that we have to learn here? Yes, there's one set of lessons we learn as a 6-year-old kid. That's important. But when we get to be, older and more mature, we have to see are there other lessons to learn from this story?
The way it was.
Why can't it stay the way it was? Again, as I say, there are lots of things in the Torah that we have to understand on a more mature level. That's because that's what we are supposed to be doing. We're supposed to be growing. We're not supposed to be staying as 6-year-old kids our whole life and having that limited understanding of the story, whatever the story might be. Okay? Okay. Questions or comments? Okay, everyone have a good rest of the week. Thank you all for joining, and Bezrat Hashem, we will see you next week, I hope. Lila Tov, and take good care, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.